The Last of Us Part 2 is a controversial game. Some people loved the game, some people hated it, and there weren't all that many people that fell in between. For the most part, I enjoyed the game, and I would recommend the game to anyone who enjoyed the first one. Joel's death was the most controversial part of the game because he was a beloved character from the first. Some people had a real fit about having to play as Ellie instead of Joel. That didn't bother me. Also, I understood why Joel was killed off, which is why I don't take issue with it. Was it hard to watch? Of course. Did I want him to die? No, not really. But we know from the ending of The Last of Us that there will be consequences to Joel's actions, so it really didn't come as a surprise. So the setup for part 2 is that you're playing a revenge story from the perspective of Ellie, but also from the perspective of a new character, Abby. And here's where another controversy comes in, playing as Abby. Many people took issue with having to play as Abby because she killed Joel. You already saw her do it, and you're pissed off about it. You're thinking, what a terrible person. How could she do that? And it's a pretty brutal death too. And then you have to play as her. Man, the balls on those guys over at Naughty Dog, huh? But again, I didn't take issue with it. I thought that making the player play as the very misunderstood Abby, a character that the game had just set you up to hate, was kind of clever. It was a fresh idea, and it made me want to know, alright, why should I want to play as Abby? Why is her story important? And how is it parallel to Ellie's story? Because why would you even bother playing as her if her story doesn't run parallel to Ellie's? Initially, the thought is, who the heck is this Abby chick? What does she have to do with Joel? What does she have to do with Ellie? Then you find out that Abby is the daughter of the doctor he killed when he was going in to save Ellie. And you remember that intense hospital scene from the first game where you have to kill a bunch of probably innocent people because Joel has decided he doesn't want to let Ellie go through with this, even though it was partially her decision. I say partially because she did want to do it, but was not warned it would kill her. We can't assume, however, that Ellie realizes it's a possibility. So Abby has her own revenge story because her father was killed for being a doctor in the wrong place at the wrong time. That in turn triggers Ellie's revenge story, which is her path of destruction to take down Abby, the murderer of the only father she's ever known. To add salt in an already raw wound, Joel and Ellie's relationship was very tense. There was anger and remorse between them, hurt that festered from lies. Ellie was struggling to get over the fact that Joel took a choice away from her. They never had a chance to reconcile before Joel's death, so that makes it harder for Ellie to let go. The game ends up being a mishmash of both of their revenge stories, flipping you back and forth between them. Playing as the two of them allows you to see their perspectives and their interactions with others, and learn more about their characters, who Abby is, and who Ellie has become. When you're playing as Ellie, you have moments with the friends that she made in the town she has grown up in. And when you're playing as Abby, you get to see her interact with friends and colleagues in the military base that she lives in. You get to know both of them. Over time, you get to see that they are both very flawed, both very angry, they're both not letting go. Now granted, it is Ellie who triggers the hunt, so to speak, to go after Abby, but you could say that Abby should expect that there would be consequences for so brutally murdering Joel. Returning to the controversies in the game, many people didn't like playing as Abby. And for those who didn't mind it too much, like myself, some of us felt like we were playing her too much. I'm in that camp. I didn't take issue with playing as Abby because I thought that was a good piece of storytelling, but I didn't like how often we had to do it. I felt like we were pulled into that section of the story more than we were pulled into Ellie's section of the story, which didn't make sense. After playing The Last of Us Part 1, you're going to be more invested in Ellie's story and want to know where hers goes. Felt like there could have been a better balance. Another controversy that came up in the game, and I'm going to preface this by saying I didn't take issue with it, is the transgender character. There are two siblings, biologically sisters, who are part of a cult that Abby comes across in her journeys. Lev is the transgender, ends up shaving his head, and is very mistreated for it. I don't know that it added a whole lot to the story, using those two particular characters, but I didn't take issue with it. Unfortunately, a lot of people did. It got a lot of people upset that something they believe is political was injected into the game. So that was yet another controversy, which I didn't find that controversial. But the controversies don't end there. Oh no, this train is still rolling. Abby's character is too manly. To be clear, I don't care. I play video games for the story and the experience, not for the attractive character models. For me, I just figured the masculine build was part of her character. She was supposed to be a rough and tough military chick, working out all the time. How realistic was it that she was that buff in an apocalyptic setting? Well, I think that can be debated. Was the intimacy scene with her a little awkward because of her physique? Perhaps. I don't personally find her attractive. Could they have done without the intimacy scene? I think they could have just shortened it by a lot. Take the approach like they do in movies where people start to kiss and then it fades. If you're playing the game, which is a mature rated game by the way, then you're already aware of what a romantic fade to black means. I think the fact that it happened at all was kind of important for some character relationship building, but I didn't need to see how it happened. It's just some fluff they put in there. I honestly find it a little disappointing just how much people cared about her character design. The ending was another source of contention. Not the very, very ending, but the ending in terms of the narrative. Some people were disappointed that neither one of the characters ended up dying, or at least that Abby didn't die. I was not. I guess I'm the odd man out on this one too. I was relieved that they didn't do that to the story. So let me try to explain my perspective a little bit here. I was growing concerned about how the story was going to wrap up when we're getting towards the end and Ellie finds them on the shore. And she basically says, all right, time to duke it out. One of us is going to die. And at that point, Abby's attitude is, I'm out. She's barely alive by the time you catch up to her. She's done, but Ellie's not. So they fight. You're playing Ellie during this and it's brutal. I wanted to take my hands off the controller, but if you do that, Abby comes after you. To me, from a writing perspective, the only way to truly close the loop, to truly close their stories, was for them to let go, not to finally grasp revenge and overcome it by killing, but rather to overcome it by seeing just how much damage it's done. You can see it in those characters, the toll it's taken, how miserable they are, how weak and tired and sick they are. It has ravaged them both. There was no more justice in the death of either one of them at that point. So when Ellie finally backed off, I breathed a sigh of relief. I think it took a little bit longer than it should have. They kind of milked that last fight, making you think that somebody was dying. But I was relieved when they brought things full circle, closing the loop. The official ending of the game, though, is when you see Ellie return to her home. It's quite heartbreaking because she returns to an empty house, a home that used to have the love of her life and the child of that lover, the child that they were going to raise together. I was okay with that too, because again, it made sense. Just like there had to be consequences for Joel's actions in the first game, there had to be consequences for Ellie's actions in the second. Although we don't see what happens to Abby after she rows off in the boat with Lev, we can imagine that things are never going to be the same for her either. Overall, despite the chaotic nature of this game, I believe that fans of the first Last of Us should play this one too. I enjoyed the experience despite some frustrations and unnecessary distractions. The ending and the powerful message of actions having consequences were worth dealing with the fluff. I'm sure I missed some controversies given the nature of this game, so put them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. We're on our way to 1,000 subs. Thanks for watching.